getting ready to listen the story, and you, in the open window, you will meet Framton Nuttel, a very nervous man. Almost everything in life makes Framton nervous. What are some things that make you nervous? One might be starting the year at a new school. Another might be taking a test when you haven't studied very hard, or speaking in front of a large group of people. Tell about something that makes you nervous. Learning about literature, the open window, has a surprise ending. This means that the ending is different from what most listeners expect. Usually, the author gives clues to help the listener figure out and understand the surprise. See if the ending to this story surprises you. The open window, a French window, is a large glass door. It usually opens onto a garden at the back of a house. As you will see, French windows play an important part in this well-known story by Saki Framton. Nuttel was sitting in a chair when the young lady entered the room. "My aunt will be down in 10 minutes, the young lady told him. Framton very much hoped so. He was not sure how he ought to talk to a 15-year-old girl. He felt nervous. Framton wondered whether Mrs. Sappleton, the aunt, would prove to be nice. He felt that everything made him feel nervous. In fact, he had come to the country in order to rest his nerves. His sister had given him some advice. "I know just what you need," she had said. "A rest, away from everyone. Out in the country, it will be good for you. I give you the names of some nice people you can visit while you're there. Otherwise, you'll stay in your room, never talk to anyone, never say a word to anyone. Then your nerves will get worse than ever." Now Framton waited for the aunt to come down. "Do you know many people around here?" the young lady finally asked. "I don't know anyone at all," admitted Framton. "My sister used to stay in this part of the country about 4 years ago. She met your aunt, Mrs. Sappleton. That is why she suggested that Mrs. Sappleton was very nice." "Do you really mean you don't know anything about my aunt?" the young lady asked. "Only her name and address," admitted Mr. Nuttel. He looked around the room and wondered whether or not Mrs. Sappleton was Mr. Sam Easy ESL. September 14th, 2025, 10:43 p.m. Married something about the Tolans suggested that a man lived there. "Her terrible tragedy happened exactly 3 years ago today," said the girl. 3 years ago today? That was after your sister was here. Her tragedy?" asked Framton nervously. It didn't seem possible that terrible things could happen in this quiet, peaceful place. The niece pointed to a large French window that opened like a big door onto the lawn. She said, "You are probably wondering why we keep that window wide open on a day in October. It is very warm for this time of the year," said Framton. "But does that window have anything to do with the tragedy?" "Yes," said the girl. "Just 3 years ago today, her husband and her 2 brothers went out through that window. They were going hunting. They never came back. All 3 drowned in a swamp. It had been a very rainy summer, you know, and places that had always been safe suddenly became dangerous. Their bodies were never found. That was the worst part of it." Here the girl's voice began to crack. "Poor, dear aunt," said the girl. "She has never been able to get over what happened. She still believes that they will all come back someday, they and the little brown dog that went with them. She thinks they will walk in through that window the way they always did. That is why that window is kept open every day until it gets dark." The girl shook her head sadly. "Poor aunt, she has often told me how they went out. Her husband had his white raincoat over his shoulder, and Ronnie, her younger brother, was singing, 'London Bridge is falling down.' Falling down, he always sang that to tease her because she said it got on her nerves. Do you know, sometimes, on quiet evenings like this, I get a strange feeling that they will all walk in through that window." The girl suddenly began to shake, and she stopped talking. Framton was very glad to see the aunt enter the room. "I am so sorry I'm late." But the aunt apologized to Framton. "I hope you enjoyed talking to Vera. She has been very interesting," said Framton. "My husband and 2 brothers will be home soon from shooting, and they always come in through the back door. They've been hunting birds since morning. That is why the window is open. They will come in through the open window, just like they used to do after a day in the marshes. Poor fellows. They've been gone 3 years now." Framton shivered slightly. He tried to talk about his illness, but the aunt seemed only half listening to him. She was keeping an eye on the open window. "It has been really hot today," she said cheerfully. "But the doctors all agree that Framton should get complete rest and avoid excitement. Nothing should upset him." "Of course," said Framton, trying to agree. "Ah, here they are at last," cried Mrs. Sappleton. Framton looked startled. In through the open window they walked, just as they had always done. They carried guns under their arms, and one of them had a white coat slung over his shoulders. A tired brown spaniel was close at their heels. They noiselessly entered the room. They nodded to Framton. Framton grabbed his hat and stick. He was nervous, pale, and full of fear. He rushed out through the open window. He ran down the path and out through the gate. "My goodness," said Mrs. Sappleton in surprise. "What a strange man." "It was probably the spaniel," said Vera calmly. "He told me he was very afraid of dogs. He was once hunted into a cemetery somewhere on the banks of the Ganges by a pack of wild dogs. And he had to spend the night in a newly dug grave with the creatures snarling and foaming above him. Enough to make anyone lose their nerve." "Here we are, my dear," said Mrs. Sappleton. "You must be very careful not to be too muddy." "I don't think that we're too muddy. We were on the roof when we came by," said a very strange man, a Mr. Nuttel. "And he ran away without saying a word when you arrived. One would think he was a human being." "I think I know," Mrs. Sappleton said. "It was the only one in the house. He told me he had a terrible fear of dogs. He said he had to spend the night in a newly dug grave, while the dogs stood a few feet above him, barking and snarling and growling. That would make anyone nervous." "That's true," said the aunt. Vera loved to make up stories. As you can see, she was very good at it.